Why it feels hopeless for young men today in 2025. What's going on, guys? Stealth Mods here. No introductions needed. Just coming at you guys with a Call of Duty Modern Warfare gameplay and a hot topic for today. So, young men feeling hopeless, or hopelessness, I should say. This is definitely a quite a, I would say, large discussion coming out. With probably within the last couple of years or so, it seems to be like emerging more so now than ever. Nowadays, it seems in, maybe the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, men have been put in, for the first time in history, a very interesting, if you will, situation. Essentially, men have been kind of tossed overboard, if you will, or at least the value proposition, right? So basically now, with the advent of women now entering the workforce, women no longer need men to provide 100% of the time. And that was kind of in the early stages. Of course, it's gotten a lot worse now, but you have some very troubling statistics in the sense of right now women in schools and in the workforce, and even it seems buying property, are those statistics are increasing way over men. And that's simply obviously due to the fact that, like, women are of course being pushed a little bit more through the door. They're becoming more educated. Feminism's given them more of a platform to provide for themselves. So this has left men to kind of be in a position where it seems a little bit hopeless these days, man. Like, especially with the high cost of living. We used to, in America, especially in the Michigan, Detroit, Chicago, very infamous for, back in the day, you used to be able to be a man coming out of high school. You could go into, manufacturing cars at the time, which, if you didn't know, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, basically the state of Michigan, sold 70% of the world's vehicles, if you can believe it, which is very crazy. And so the equivalent minimum wage, let's say around, like, I think it's like the 70s to now. So today's minimum wage in, let's say, like, America or Canada, where I live, is like $16, $17. The equivalent back then was actually like, it was like anywhere from 30 to about 50 to $60, right? Where, as you can see, back then a house was only maybe 2 to 4 times your income to buy a house. Well, nowadays the wages haven't kept up. We would need to be making the equivalent of, like I said, $50 to $60, which obviously the minimum wage hasn't gone up. Now homes are 8 to 10 times your income, but that's a whole nother discussion. But it does relate in the sense of, if men aren't making a lot of money and men aren't buying homes, then that leads into the other statistic of, well, a lot of men are not dating, simply because they either can't afford it, or women and feminism have made it so that women no longer rely on men, if you will, even though that is kind of it's false if you really dive into it, because if men don't do good, women don't do good. And if men don't do good and women don't do good, then children don't do good, because men, ever since the beginning of time, they're the harbingers of time and progression in all areas of history, all time periods. Men have always been the guardians, if you will. They hold up society, they hold up everything, right? So if these men can't afford to date, they can't get dates, because women's standards have artificially are propped up. They're a lot higher. This is leaving a lot of men to either be jobless, because of jobs overseas, or women taking up finance jobs, or some even manufacturing, or AI coming in and kind of throwing another wrench into the machine. This is kind of has men. A lot of men aren't working due to the statistics, more so than women. Especially, it gets worse for young men. And if young men aren't dating, if young men aren't working, the other statistic is a lot of young people are not having kids these days either. So that's kind of, it's going to be interesting to see maybe 10, 15 years or now where this is going to really lead us. And so, like, where do you sit as a young guy today? It's not easy. I will tell you that. I mean, you go into a job, it's not really paying enough, so you can't date, can't really go out much. The money you do have, you're either paying rent or, living at home with your parents is probably the better alternative right now. Whereas, back maybe even, let's say, like 5 to 10 years ago, you'd get made fun of if you were like a 30-year-old guy living at home. Now, the dumb ones are renting out on their own at like a 27, 28-year-old, and the smart ones are staying at home with their families. And actually, I think it's a lot better that way, because being close to your parents, being close to your family, your cousins, your grandparents, some people, like, let's say, like Latino families and stuff, they're a lot bigger families. They, the kids might live with their parents, and the grandparents might still be all living together, which is actually, it's not a negative, it's a positive, because you're connecting and bonding more with your family. But and then as a young man, you try to come out here, you try to rent, even maybe, let's say, a 1-2 bedroom apartment. You're working hard, maybe you are barely making it. By the time you pay all your bills, dude, I mean, where do you stand on the economic ladder? I mean, especially for dating too. Like, it just seems hopeless. And the smart guys are they're either trying to move into other avenues of, maybe some small startups, whether it's, selling courses, or, starting YouTube channels, kind of like what I've done, or, driving Uber. You just kind of having to, like, adapt to the times, where it seems like back in the day, you didn't, like, this wasn't required. Like, you could, like, back in the 40s all the way to maybe even the early 90s, dude, like, you went to college and you came out with a job that could provide everything you needed. You didn't have to do like 3-4 side hustles. Like, you didn't need to go and do YouTube, or try to attempt a small business, a lawn care business, or anything. Doing Uber at night. You didn't need to do that. Whereas, like, nowadays, like, we're living in this time where, like, this is almost a first in history. So, and then you have to understand the advent of AI. It's ever so changing this so quickly, and I feel like men are most effective. That's the key word. I'll say it again. Men most affected. Young men especially. The older boomers, and then I think it's Gen X. They're okay. They're actually exempt from this example, because they've already built their wealth and have had a chance to build in an economy that didn't have the internet to kind of shake things up, right? But millennials, like, I have an older brother. Millennials, he's a millennial, and Gen Z are going to be most affected. Men in particular, due to the fact that women are kind of getting more pushed through the door, and then men just kind of being left out. But, if you leave out men out of this equation, if you just toss them to the sides, that has huge ramifications, if not now in the short term, but long term. I mean, like, we're already seeing a lot of the effects of this, where we're seeing a lot more crime. We're seeing weak men taking leadership roles where they shouldn't be there, and what that's doing. We have a lot of homelessness, drug addiction, people, and another thing, the statistic on homelessness and drug addiction is more prevalent, again, here we go again, with men, right? And I would say half of that is due to the fact of a lack of purpose, a lack of place, right? So, these things that we're doing right now, that society is taking a gamble to see if, we can void the importance of majority male presence and value proposition. They're trying to see if they can offload it to women, which is clearly it's not working. So, we're gonna have to see what happens within the next 5 to 10 years. But that's gonna be it for today's video. I had a really fun one, really fun time recording this one. This is a topic I'm very passionate about, especially with the gameplay in the back. I'm absolutely loving Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. I'm sniping, I'm getting clips, maybe gonna be throwing up my own personal montage here in maybe the next few weeks. So thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment, please. Share your experience, share your story. I want to hear it. I have lots of time to read comments and to take criticism. So please leave down a comment, like the video, share, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.